Hey guys, welcome back. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how you can integrate Auth0 with your Next.js application. If you don't know about Auth0, Auth0 is a powerful authentication and authorization platform that simplifies the process of adding secure user authentication to applications, and it offers robust features like user management, social logins, single sign-on, as well as multi-factor authentication, just to name a few. And it eliminates the need for developers to build authentication systems from scratch, saving time and effort while also providing industry standard security protocols. So that's sort of like a short description on what Auth0 is and how we can use it. And what we're going to be doing in this video is building a Next.js project that we will integrate with Auth0 to display and demonstrate a login authentication system, and all of that is going to be handled by Auth0. So if you guys are doing any sort of Next.js projects with Next.js as the backend or with a separate backend, you guys can definitely utilize this in your front end, and I'll be showing you how you can have protected pages as well. So with that being said, let's begin. Okay, so I have opened up my directory called Next.js Auth0 inside of my terminal right here. And what I'm going to be doing is creating the project inside of this Next.js Auth0 folder. Now, if you guys are in a separate directory and want to create a project inside of that directory, then you could just do npx create next app and then type in your app name here. But since I already have a Next.js Auth0 folder and I have nothing inside of it, I'm just going to do npx create next app and hit period so that the application can be created inside of this directory called Next.js Auth0, and this will be the name of the app. So I'll hit enter, and if you give it a few seconds, it's going to ask you if you would like to create it with TypeScript. I'm just going to hit yes, ESLint yes, tailwind CSS yes, source directory I'm just going to go with no because it just kind of simplifies a lot of directories, so I'll just hit no. App router, I'm going to go with no because app router is currently in beta testing and majority of the Next.js applications still use the older pages router, and that's what I'm going to be using in this video to make it easy to follow along with everyone. So I'm just going to hit no for this one, and then customize the default import alias. I'll just go with no, and if you give it a few seconds, it's going to create the Next.js project inside of this Next.js Auth0 folder, and I'm going to be back once it completes. Okay, so now that we have completed creating our Next.js project, I'm just going to leave this terminal open here because we're going to need it in a bit, and what we need to do next is sign up for Auth0. So what you need to do is open up your web browser and go to auth0.com to be presented with this screen right here. And then you're going to click this sign up button located in the top right corner of the homepage. And over here, you're just going to fill in your email address and create a password for your Auth0 account. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with me. So I'll just do my email address. If you guys want to use other sign up options, you can sign up with GitHub, Google, or Microsoft, but I'm just going to prefer to do it with email just to make it a lot easier to follow along. So I'll hit continue, and here it's going to ask me to create a password. So I'll go ahead, create the password, and then I'm going to click continue. So give it a few seconds, and over here it's going to ask you if you're creating this account on behalf of your company or other, but since I'm just doing it for a YouTube video, I'm just going to click other, and then once I click next, it'll set up the tenant, and if you give it a few seconds, we'll be presented with a few more configuration options right here. So for me, I've used Auth0 before, so I'm not going to need to click I am a new Auth0 user, so I'll just click this and hit get started. And now we have created our Auth0 application. And if you look in the top left and click this, this is the name of our application in which the authentication routes will be located. So this is basically completed for the Auth0 sign up. We are going to be coming back to this screen momentarily to configure a few settings, so don't exit out of this window just yet. Alright, so now I'm going to open up my code editor, and I'm using VS Code, so I'll just do code and dot to open it up inside of this Next.js Auth0 directory. If I hit enter, you're just going to see my editor pop up right here. And what I'm going to do is open up my terminal, and before I get into any of the configurations with any of the files here, I'm just going to install the dependencies that we need. So to install Auth0 to use Next.js, we're just going to need to do npm install at Auth0 Next.js Auth0, and we're also going to install .env to store some of our credentials in a env file. So if you just give it a few seconds, it will complete that. So I'll go ahead and clear my screen, and if I close my terminal and go into package.json, you can see that these two packages have been added, auth0 and .env. Okay, so now that we have completed adding our required packages, let's go ahead and configure some settings in our Auth0 application. So to do this, I'm going to head back to my Auth0 page right here in the dashboard. And right here, I'm just going to click Create Application to create a regular web application. All right, so you can do regular web application, and you can name your app right here. Now, since I'm doing this for a YouTube video, I'm just going to put YouTube Next.js Auth0. And make sure you select regular web applications. And over here, it's going to ask you what technology you're using for your project. And since we're using Next.js, I'm of course going to click Next.js. And over here, what you're going to do next is configure the URLs for your application under the application URI in the settings section. So settings is right here, and what you're going to do is go down, and over here where it has allowed callback URLs, you're going to type in http // localhost 3000, and the reason that we're putting 3000 is because that's the port that our application is going to be running on when we are creating it, and then /API /auth /callback. And basically you can add multiple URLs by separating them with a comma. However, I just want to go over what this does. So when a user is successfully authenticated, they need a route to call, right? They need a route to go to, and this callback route, which is integrated by Auth0 with the Auth0 Next.js Auth0 package right here, it's going to handle all of that for us so that we don't have to do much, all right? And then for allowed logout URLs, we're just going to do http //localhost 3000, so that once we've logged out, this is where it's going to redirect us to. Now, if you want to have a different route on your application, then you can put that here. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going by the Auth0 documentation and specifying the default or the suggested one by the documentation. Okay. And we also need to go to basic information. So if we go down, one second. If we go to the basic information right here, kind of missed it, we need to take note of the client ID, client secret, and the domain value, okay? Because we're going to need these values in what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to keep these here for right now, and then I'm going to come back to these. But what I need to do next is go back to our code editor, and we need to allow our Next.js app to link with Auth0 and communicate with it, right? So to do that, we're going to have to create a .env file, and the reason that we installed .env was so that we could access these values in case we ever needed to. So inside of Next.js Auth0, which is my root directory, I'm just going to create a file called .env.local, and inside of here, I'm just going to paste these values in. So right here, this is what you can find in the Next.js Auth0 documentation, and what we need to do is replace these values with our application's values. So with domain, I'm just going to copy this, and for domain, we'll just put this right here, so paste it in. Yeah, So we need to put the HTTPS at the beginning. So HTTPS:// and then you have your domain. And then after that, we're going to need a long random value. And to create the long random value, you can just open up your terminal. I'm just going to clear it for now and do this command. And I'll have this command in the description of the video. So I'll do this, and this is going to generate a secret key for us so that we can use it in our application. And I'll just paste it there. And then for our client ID and client secret, we can find those over here. So I'll copy the client ID, paste it here, and for the client secret, I'll copy it and I'll also paste it here. Okay? And next we need to add the dynamic API route. So we're going to basically stay in our code editor for right now, and inside of pages and in the API directory, we need to create an auth directory under this directory, okay? So inside of API, we're going to create a folder called auth to handle all of our authentication related things. So inside of auth, we're going to create a new file, and this is how it's going to look. So it's going to be square bracket auth0 closing square bracket .ts. Okay, and I'm just putting .ts because we're using TypeScript with this project. If you're using JavaScript, then you should put .js. So I'll just do .ts, and here we're just going to populate this file with this code right here. And what this is basically handle auth is a function that is provided by the package that we installed earlier. And what handle auth does is that it creates different route handlers to handle all of our authentication flow. So when you first log into Auth0, it's going to go through API auth login. So this handle auth function will handle all the login flow based on that, as well as logging out the callback URLs that we also set earlier over here. So this is what handle auth does, in case you were wondering. Okay. And next we need to wrap our entire application in a Auth0 user provider. Okay. So if we close out of these files and head over to _app.tsx in this pages directory, we're going to import user provider. So we'll just do import user provider and Auth0, and then do /client. Okay. And what I'm going to do next is return user provider, and I'll just copy this over here and remove this line. Alright, and what this will do is basically, since we are using this Auth0 platform to create and authenticate users, we're going to have to wrap our entire application with Auth0. Okay, so this is all the configuration that we need at the moment, and now we can start working on actually creating a page where we can log in and have the user, and have our client basically create new users via Google or via their own email and log in, and I'll show you how you can access certain parts of their user to display their information, like their name, email, and things like that. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how you can actually build the application so that you can not only create users but log in as well as view your information. But before we do that, I need you guys to make sure that you have saved your changes inside of Auth0. So at the bottom here, you're going to see this button that says Save Changes. Just make sure that you press this so that all of the logout URLs and the callback URLs are working. Okay, and now I'm just going to go ahead and do npm run dev to run my application. And if I go to localhost 3000, it's going to have all this boilerplate, which we don't need right now. So I'm just going to go into index.tsx inside of my pages directory, and I'm just going to remove all this code and do rfce, which is a snippet that you can use after installing this ES7 React Redux and React Native Snippets extension, which I recommend. So we just created a bare function component, and if we go back, you can see that we just have index and a dark screen here. And to remove that, I'm just going to go into globals.css and remove all the code after the tailwind stuff, just so that it's easier for you guys to follow along and see what's going on. So we have this page, and what I'm going to do next is create a login link. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to first configure a few things, and I'll explain to you what they mean. So if I do import use user from Auth0 client, what this will do is this use user function, it's going to return 3 things. And the things that it's going to return are user, error, in case we encounter an error, and it is loading, which is going to be a boolean. Okay, so if I do use user, this function will return 3 things, and what this user object is that once we've logged in, this user object will allow us to display information about our user. So let's say that we've logged into our application and we want to see our users, or our current user's username, right? So we would do user.name in order to access that. If we ever encounter any sort of error when signing up or logging in, then we're going to use this error object to display the message to the client. And if any data is loading, then we can just check this is loading parameter, which is going to, of course, be a boolean to display whether or not data is being loaded currently. So this is what this use user function does, and you'll kind of see how this works in a moment. But for right now, I'm going to create a login link that will allow us to sign up and log into our Auth0 application. So I'll just do return a href API auth login and close the tag, and then just have login inside of it so you can see it right here. Okay. And the reason that we're doing API auth login is because when we first created this Auth0 file inside of this auth directory, what this handle auth function did was basically create this route so that we can have a proper login flow. Okay, for logging in, logging out, this was one of the routes that was created, so we don't really have to touch much on it. So if we can just go ahead and click log in, it will lead us to this page, which we can customize as well. If you go into your Auth0 application settings, you can kind of change the logo that's displayed as well as add some branding to your application, but we're not going to do that in this video. But I'm just letting you guys know in case you wanted to change the look of this login. But for right now, let's go ahead and create an account. So again, we're at login here, and if we click it, it's going to lead us to this page to create an account. Now let's just click sign up, and I'll do email@email.com and then type in my password. So I'll just do I don't know, capital P @ SS W0D, just to make sure that it fits in with all the criteria. So I'll go ahead and hit continue, and it's going to ask you if you want to let our application, and you can see our application name that we set up earlier, to access our account. So we'll just go ahead and click accept, and now we are logged in. Now you may not see that because all we have on our page is log in, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and paste some code that will kind of take this away. So, and I'll explain what that means as well. So I'll go ahead and just paste this code right here, and you guys can find all this code in the Auth0 documentation, but right now you can see that it just says welcome at email@email.com. And let me go over what this does. So again, like I explained earlier, there are these 3 return values, and if we're currently loading something, then we're just going to display loading, and if there's an error, then we're just going to return an error message. But if we have a user object active in the session, meaning that we have a user who is logged in, we can return their user and their name is just going to be their email address. Okay, and like I said before, this Auth0 handle auth function will create routes under the hood to help us with logging in and logging out. And again, you can see there's a logout link call with the route set to API auth logout so that we can log out, right? So if I go ahead and do log out, you can see that we've logged out. And if I click log in again, then it'll bring us to this page. And since we've already created an account, there's no need to create one again. We can just do email@email.com. And I'll go ahead and enter in my password. So I'll just do P and then type in the rest. And if I hit continue, you can see that it says welcome email@email.com. Now, if you open up your console, and over here, I'm just going to go ahead and do if user, I'm just going to do console.log user to kind of show you what this user object gives you access to. So right here, you can see that this user object has given us access to email@email.com, our name, nickname, and the picture, right? And this SID and sub, these are kind of things that you can use to tie in with your backend and save in your database if you're building an application that requires this sort of data. But right now we're not going to be doing that. I'm just going to show you how to do the login and logging out, right? So here we can see that our nickname is email, right? Because this is what comes before the @ symbol. We can print out our nickname as well by doing going here and doing your nickname is user.nickname and just hit a period. Over here you can see that it says your nickname is email. And let me just add a break so it looks nicer. So right here you can see that since we're logged in as a user, we are able to access these values, which are coming from this user object. And to check if we're actually logged in, we can just use this user object by doing if user, meaning that there is a value for user. We can display the information about that user by doing welcome user.name to display their name, which in this case would be their email address, as well as their nickname like that. So that's basically how you can get a login and logout flow completed with Auth0. Now, if you want to access other routes and such, you can go ahead and do API auth and me, and this will kind of show you your information in JSON format, and this is basically what we logged to our console right here. So yeah, that's about it. So if we go ahead and log out, it'll log us out, and since there is no user object once we log out, it's going to only display login because there is no user object. Okay, so just to kind of reiterate, when we log in, it'll create a user object, and if anything is loading, it's going to just return loading. If there's an error, then it's going to print out the error. But if we have a user object who has logged in successfully through Auth0, we're going to be able to access the user object's attributes like their name and their nickname, email, and things like that to display on our web page. And once we log out, that user object is removed, so we just have this final return statement, which is sort of like a else to display a login page. Okay, so again, I'll go ahead and do it again. I'll do login, and again, if you want to create a new user or continue with Google, you have the option to do that as well. So I'll go ahead, enter my email address again, and then password. And once I'm successfully logged in, it'll display my information, and I can just click log out. And the reason that this is displaying twice is because we have strict mode set to true, which is just going to have things display twice for testing purposes. But just to kind of clear up confusion, the reason that we're logging once in our code but it's being logged twice is because of the strict mode thing. So just so that no one gets confused. So yeah, that's about it for logging in and logging out. Alright everyone, that's it for this video. Of course, this was a very broad tutorial since it only helps with integrating Auth0 to add login and logout functionality. And if you're wondering, you can have a separate login page with this login link right here to access the login form that is provided by Auth0. I only had the user dashboard and login inside the same file just to make it easy for you guys to follow along, but I definitely encourage you to go ahead and do more with this. And just to give you an example, you can send the other user attributes like the sub and SID to the backend, to a backend server if you have one, for a fully fledged web app to handle data. But to sum it all up, this is basically how you can integrate Auth0 with your Next.js app. and I hope this was helpful for you, and if it was, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to email me or just leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to reply to you. So yeah, as always, have a nice one and I'll see you in the next video.